This is a story of a man who loved his horse so much he learned gravity magic so he wouldn't crush him. Meet Starscourge Radahn. I'm Horizon Shield. Let's make this easy. In this fight, you'll notice that I don't use blocks, parries, or summons. If you do, that's alright. Everybody plays the game differently. Choose your playstyle and let's go with it. Personally, I'm doing this fight at level 31 with 2+8 Lordsworn longswords because I think they're cool. For armor, I'm using a full set of Godric's Night Gear, and for talismans, the Wingsword Insignia, the Starscourge Heirloom, and the Assassin's Crimson Dagger. They're not particularly great, but they get me by the fight. You'll notice that at the fight that I show at the end of the video, I actually switched up a bit. I keep the same swords. However, I was having trouble dodging one of the attacks, so I switched to a light equip load. I took it to the extreme and took off all of my armor. I also switched up my talismans to do more damage. So I ended up going for the Ritual Sword Talisman, the Starscourge Heirloom, and Radahn Sword Seal. But I just need to do more damage. If you don't feel like you need it, you don't have to switch. So what can Radahn actually do? Well, he starts on the other side of the arena, so you better start running towards him. Jump on your horse, and let's get going. But first, we have to dodge his opening arrow. Drawing his bow, the tip of it glows purple to show his gravity magic. This arrow is a blood-seeking missile and will not miss unless you dodge it. If you're on the ground, you can roll through it. However, if you're on torrent, you're going to have to hit the dodge button to get that burst of speed. If you hit it just after it releases the arrow, you're going to be just fine. After getting close enough to Radahn, he will shoot straight into the air, and arrows will start raining down. This is Radahn's rain. These arrows actually follow the player, so be kind of careful, but for the most part they aren't going to be an issue if you're on torrent. You can just run straight away, or even just sideways and circle around back to him. After you get close enough to Radahn, he shoots a scatter shot of arrows at the player. These spread randomly, so there's no guarantee that you're just going to miss. So, either get off the horse and roll through them, or use something to block the arrows itself. Personally, I prefer the hill behind him, so I'll end up showing how to get around him and block most of the arrows along the way. As you get close enough to Radahn, he stops shooting his arrows and draws his swords. He will always charge directly after you, and will usually start with one of two attacks. Keep in mind that his body is not a hitbox in this fight, so it won't actually hurt you if you collide with it. So sticking close to him is very beneficial. The first one is the Roaring Smash. He will jump off of his horse, roar, and do a series of 5 swings. After jumping and doing the first 2 swings, he pauses, does 3 more, and then does an upward slash with both of his swords. To dodge this, you have a couple of options. If you happen to be close enough, you can walk underneath him for the entire moveset, and you can do attacks for the entire duration. Alternatively, you can just run away. The attack doesn't chase you, so you should be just fine. Another of the opening attacks after his charge can be a simple jump slam. This sees Radahn jumping towards the player and slamming both of his blades down in front of him. It's a very simple attack. To dodge, you can either roll to the sides or walk towards him if you're close enough. He also has a variation of this attack where he doesn't jump and just slams both of his swords down. It's the exact same for that portion. His next attack is a 4-hit combo with sweeps, ending with a massive single spin towards you. The attack is very predictable and easy to spot with its telegraph. If he brings his blades to his right side, holds them for a second, he will then be doing the sweep. So he'll do one sweep, followed by a backswing, a pause, swing with both of his blades, another pause, and then a full spin towards the player. Make sure you don't get hit, dodge for every swing, but remember the pauses in between them. You should be just fine. His retreating attack is a quick stomp and slash while jumping backwards. The telegraph for this is his purple glowing foot. Shortly after you see it, he will swing the sword next to his leg and launch himself backwards. I recommend rolling with him to dodge, as you can also get a hit in if you want, but it's also setting you up in position for the next attack. One of his fastest attacks comes from his chop attack, a quick slam with both swords straight down in an X shape. This attack is difficult to see coming because of Radahn's size. He tilts his torso back slightly while lifting his arms. The easiest way to see this attack is to not overcommit to your other attacks. A simple roll forwards will dodge the attack if you see it coming. Radahn also has a chance to do a full frontal sweep. He brings the swords from his right to his left in a very slow arc. In this phase, this attack will simply miss you if you're close enough. I always recommend moving and rolling to the right in preparation for his second and third phases, where he sends out a gravity wave with it. One of the most common attacks is a chasing slash. Radahn raises his sword on one side of his body and closes the distance with the player. Roughly 3 seconds after raising his weapon, he swings. The timing is a little bit difficult because it's so delayed. The easiest way to dodge is to just roll through it. You can try to get out of range, but it may be difficult if he tracks you like Bloodhound during the attack. Most of the time for this attack, you'll see him follow up with one of several moves. However, he can just do this attack and then not do any others. So next up is the upward slash. While riding towards you, he will drop his sword down to the ground, leaning to one side. When he gets too close, he will wait a moment and swing his sword upward. He swings just after reaching you, so you may need to delay just a half second more than you think you do. Next up is a single slam. Looking sideways on his horse, he raises a single sword into the air. After a pause, he brings it down for a simple attack. To dodge, just roll left or right. The attack's fairly simple. If you're far enough away, you can just walk backwards as well. Another common follow-up is a side sweep. It's one full sweep with one blade on one side. It's just a horizontal sweep on the side closest to the player. It can be dodged with a well-timed roll. Fairly simple, but it does have quite a bit of reach, so be wary. Another follow-up is the double slash. He takes a partial step off the horse and swings twice, and he starts to move away as he finishes the attack. To dodge, if you're far enough away, you can just back away. However, he may follow up with an additional combo. However, if you're close enough to him, you can just roll sideways, or not even worry about it. Next up is the quick spin attack. It has a very similar telegraph to the 4-hit combo, except this one is significantly shorter on the windup. He does 2 half sweeps of his blades, meaning 1 full circle as he moves forward, but he can't hit you with both swings if you don't dodge. To dodge this attack, you're going to need to do 2 dodges. The first one, you dodge forward into him. Be careful of dodging into his body, as he can push you back into the attack if you aren't careful. So try to get to his side before doing the dodge if possible. The second one is going to be directly backwards after you finish the first. Having a light equip load actually helps get distance and well as a faster recovery rate to do the second roll if that's easier for you. However, it's not necessary. After getting Radahn down to 75% of his health, he goes into a partial phase transition. He gets a few new abilities and can now add gravity waves to his attacks, so kind of be wary of them. To start this phase, he will want to ride around and stop directly in front of you. It may look funny sometimes, but at least you know he's doing the phase transition. He will start this phase with a crag blade, and it's telegraphed by him touching his blades together before slamming them down, much like a chop attack. As he's pulling the swords out, it starts to glow purple, and you'll notice he has rocks covering the blades. He can hurt you with the attack going down and up, so be careful not to stand next to the blades. He's vulnerable for this entire animation as long as you're behind his blades. This attack is always followed by a Starcaller Cry. The Starcaller Cry is a very fast attack. This attack is telegraphed by the area around him glowing purple and him hunching over. As he stands up, a circle of damage will be done around him. To dodge, you can just roll through it if you're on the ground. You cannot dodge this one on a horse. If you are in front of him, he will follow up with this attack with a frontal slam. You can dodge the follow-up by either rolling through it or just by being behind him. I recommend doing damage to the rear of his horse as it gets you out of range of the slam attack. Next up is the cross dive. This attack shows Radahn roaring as he rides away from you. As he turns around and rides back towards the player, his arms will be crossed. He will leap off of his horse and slam the ground. To dodge this part, all you have to do is back away. The real challenge is the gravity wave that comes out. This gravity wave is just a simple line of magic that rolls towards you. You can dodge it by either jumping over it or by rolling through it. Personally, I prefer jumping a lot of the times. However, these gravity waves are actually just a new attack that he can attach to several of his sweep attacks, such as the Roaring Smash, that final sweep, as well as the frontal sweep attack. You can dodge by getting to the side of him for the most part, and then rolling at the appropriate time. If you aren't close enough, same as before, you can either roll through them or jump over the gravity waves to dodge. Radahn also has another frontal slam called Collapsing Stars. He raises his arms above his head and then slams them down. This one does damage in an area and then spawns gravity orbs that chase the player. To dodge them, I recommend running away from the attack to start with to get some distance, and then rolling through them. This is because the orbs get faster the longer they are around, so it's easier to dodge by getting a little distance. He also likes to follow up with other moves while he's doing this attack, so you might need to be careful. Alternatively, you can use the terrain and the hills to block the orbs by hiding behind them. This third phase starts as soon as Radahn hits 50% health. He starts to glow purple and then does a Superman jump into the stratosphere and off the screen. This opening attack is called a Meteor Crash. The sky will turn a dark blue and he will come crashing in as a meteor. He will come from the direction you were facing when he jumped and left the screen, so kind of stay facing that same way and you'll be ready for it. The attack is very simple to dodge. Just walk out of the path. You can summon your horse to get a little bit of extra distance if you want, but it's not even necessary. He will repeat this attack every 3 minutes after the initial crash. Starting in the third phase, he will summon meteors that float around him. The telegraph for this attack is a simple jump and slam. The dodging part comes in as he hits the ground again. You don't need to worry about anything else. As he pulls the swords out of the ground, the meteors rise up around him. Throwing meteors comes later, so you don't actually need to worry about the meteors themselves for the moment. For his meteor release, it's very similar to the cross dive attack. He will roar as he runs away. He will make a show of swinging his arms towards you and throwing the meteors 2 at a time. The dodge is fairly simple. You can roll to the sides of the attack as they come by. Try to keep walking backwards to get some distance from Radahn to delay his cross dive. And then the dodge is the same as it was in the phase before. Just walk backwards as soon as he leaps, and then jump over or roll through the gravity wave as it comes to you. His final new move is the Spiral Death attack. So this attack shows him glowing purple and floating into the air. He will then descend and start spinning. He hits the ground, and then a quarter second later, he spins towards the player. He then goes back up in the air and then spins towards the player a second time before hitting the ground and doing an outward strike. The timing for the dodge is just after it hits the ground for both timings. It may take a minute to get used to, but this attack is actually pretty easy to dodge. If the worst happens and we get hit, when can we heal? Well, thankfully Radahn doesn't actively punish healing. As long as you can get some distance, you should be perfectly fine to heal. However, always be warned that he does do some attacks that have quite a bit of reach, so always be on the lookout for a side sweep or anything that has a chasing animation. Also be warned that if you get too much distance, he may do collapsing stars and send the gravity balls at you. Past that, there's not a whole lot of attacks that will actively punish you. Play it smart, get some distance, and try to heal. So how do we bring it together to finish this fight? Well, I'll start off by summoning Torrent immediately. Start heading over to the right. He'll start shooting arrows at you, but that's perfectly fine. Dodge it just like we said before. Dodge just after he shoots it. After getting close enough, he'll shoot Radahn's rain straight in the air, but you don't have to worry about this one too much. As you go over here, he shoots a scatter shot or 2 at you. You can either go further behind this hill to get the shots blocked by the hill itself, or piles of debris will also block it for you. It just depends on whatever you're more comfortable with. I end up dragging him down to the bottom of the hill because I like the flat surface. It is possible to fight him at the top, however, his hitboxes for some of his moves vary when he does that, and I didn't want to show that in the video. He starts off with a Roaring Smash, and I use the advantage to get a couple hits in. So the biggest part of this fight is to not overcommit to your attacks. Some of his attacks can be very quick, such as the quick spin like that, or the forward chop. Those are the ones I'm actually worried about. So you'll notice that I'm obviously not wearing armor in this portion of the video. That's because I was having trouble dodging the quick spin attack, so I decided to drop the armor and go for a light equip load, because it gives you a further dodge distance and a little bit faster recovery. Obviously here we dropped it into the partial second phase, and hopefully here we'll be seeing the phase transition to phase 2 since he's just over 50%. You just have to find a good enough time to be able to get hits in without getting your face smashed in. Unless you just want to trade damage, which is also perfectly fine. But you're waiting for a couple of the attacks where he does very slow moves and has a lot of recovery afterwards. There you see he goes into his second phase, and he's already down to 35-40%-ish. He's going to be coming in from where you finished off looking. I summon Torrent, walk over the side, and then jump back towards him. I always try to get a hit in after he comes back into the arena. Anyways, he does his Meteor Summon and does another Chasing Slash. So the Meteor Summon isn't actually that big of a deal. You just have to be wary that the timing for it is actually when he hits the ground, not when he jumps or anything. I had some trouble figuring that out. This second phase is actually more difficult because of the fact that he has not necessarily faster moves, but he can add gravity waves to some of the other ones. So it actually is more difficult to find a completely open attack to damage him. It sounds a little strange, but you just have to be a little bit more patient because of that. Here he does the Meteor Summon. One of the ones on the right actually gets blocked by the hill there, as I mentioned that it could be possible before. And I just prefer jumping over the actual gravity waves whenever he does them. And there, I saw the opportunity to finish it. so I went ahead and took it. If you've made it this far, congratulations on beating the man that could fell the stars. If you thought this video was helpful, feel free to like and subscribe to see me break down the rest of the bosses in Elden Ring. Until next time, happy hunting.